Little girl calls her mum's first contact. A CEO answers. What she says changes everything. The mahogany boardroom of Crawford Industries fell into an uneasy silence as James Crawford's phone buzzed against the sleek, polished table. At 40 years old, James commanded authority. His sharp jawline and piercing grey eyes made him a formidable figure, while his presence in any room was enough to close million-dollar deals with a handshake. But tonight was different. A high-stakes meeting about a crucial acquisition in Shanghai was underway when a sudden interruption came in the form of an unknown number flashing across his phone screen. "Take 5, gentlemen," James said in his deep voice, cutting through the tension. His executives shuffled their papers as he stepped away from the table and walked toward the floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the glittering Manhattan skyline. He answered the phone, half expecting another urgent update from Tokyo, but instead of a familiar voice, a small trembling voice broke through the static. "Papai! Daddy!" The words hit James like a thunderclap. He froze, his heart racing as the word "daddy" reverberated in his ears. "Who is this?" he asked, his voice softening despite his usual commanding tone. There was a pause on the other end, followed by a desperate plea. "I found your number in Mommy's phone. She said if we were ever really scared and she couldn't help us, we should call this number and say that word. She said you'd understand." James's mind raced, trying to piece together what was happening. His heart clenched as he heard muffled cries in the background, a sound that pierced his chest. "Please don't hang up," the child pleaded, her voice cracking with fear. "Mommy collapsed this morning. She won't wake up. We don't have any food. Can you help us?" James's eyes narrowed as he took in the gravity of the situation. He asked the girl for her name. "Madison. I'm almost 11, and my twin sisters Zoe and Mia are 7. We live in the apartment above the old bakery that closed down. Mommy used to clean offices at night, but she's really sick now and I don't know what to do." A sense of urgency surged through James as the reality of the situation hit him. He thought of the many business deals that filled his days, but nothing mattered more than the words he was hearing now. His thoughts raced as he made the decision to help. "Where are you, Madison?" he asked, his voice steady now, focused entirely on the task at hand. "I don't know the exact address," she replied, her voice small. "The windows are boarded up, and there's a big crack in the wall. It rains inside sometimes." Her description painted a vivid picture of poverty so close, yet worlds apart from James's lavish lifestyle. James, who had never considered himself a family man, felt something shift within him. The child's desperate plea for help was like nothing he had ever faced. James didn't waste any time. His mind was already racing as he left the boardroom. A meeting about multi-billion-dollar acquisitions suddenly seeming insignificant. The city outside his windows, the same skyline that had once filled him with pride, now looked distant and hollow. His thoughts were entirely consumed by Madison's words, the desperate cries from her sisters, and the woman on the other end of the line, Rachel. James's heart skipped a beat as Madison mentioned Rachel's name, Rachel Santos. 11 years ago, she had been the woman who had brightened his late nights at the office with her smile, her laugh, and the kind of warmth he had never expected from someone who cleaned his office. The memory of their brief, passionate connection still haunted him. They had shared stolen moments in empty hallways and quiet dinners, but then she had disappeared without a trace. He had searched for her, hired private investigators, but no one could find her. She had vanished, leaving nothing but an empty apartment and unanswered questions. James never understood why, but deep down he had always wondered if it was his father's influence, the way his family had always tried to control his life. Now he stood in the midst of his world crumbling, forced to confront a past he had never fully understood. "Madison, is your mummy awake?" he asked, trying to maintain a calm demeanor. "Can I speak to her?" "She's breathing, but she's not waking up properly," Madison responded, her voice a mixture of fear and uncertainty. "She just moans when I try to wake her." James's chest tightened. This was real, more real than anything he had ever faced in his corporate world. In his world of mergers and acquisitions, there was nothing that could prepare him for the weight of this moment. The weight of 3 children relying on him, unknowingly calling him Daddy as a last hope. "Stay with me, Madison," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm coming to help." He could hear her shuffle as she called for her mother. The words that followed hit James like a punch to the gut. "Mummy, wake up. There's a man on the phone who says he knows you. His name is James Crawford." There was a long silence before Rachel's voice, weak and raspy but unmistakable, came through. "James, is it really you?" James's heart raced. Rachel. He hadn't heard that voice in over a decade, but in that moment, it felt like no time had passed at all. It was as though their connection had never left, and all the years of silence and confusion between them melted away. "I looked for you, Rachel," James said, his voice breaking. "After you stopped showing up for work, I tried to find you. I couldn't understand why you disappeared." She hesitated before responding, the weight of years of silence hanging heavy between them. "I couldn't stay. Things got complicated." James didn't care about the past anymore. He cared about the present, about Rachel, and the children, his children. "Where are you?" he asked, his urgency intensifying. "I'm coming to help." Rachel's voice trembled as she gave him the address. 1247 Bleecker Street, apartment 3B, above the old Giovanni's Bakery. As soon as James hung up, he felt a surge of determination flood through him. He grabbed his coat and, without a second thought, turned to his executives, who were waiting anxiously in the boardroom. "We're postponing this meeting indefinitely," James declared. "Cancel everything on my schedule for tomorrow." As he walked toward the elevator, he couldn't help but think of how his life had just irrevocably shifted. The high-powered deals, the millions in revenue, the smooth corporate world, all of it felt like it belonged to a different life, a life he was no longer sure he wanted. The thought of Madison, her sisters, and Rachel was all that mattered now. His world, once so carefully constructed and controlled, had just been turned upside down. James drove through the streets of Brooklyn, each pothole and crumbling building pulling him further away from the polished life he had once known. His thoughts swirled as the contrast between his luxurious Manhattan penthouse and the impoverished neighborhood he was now entering became painfully clear. He couldn't help but feel a deep unease as he passed run-down buildings, graffiti-covered walls, and broken windows. The neighborhood felt like a world apart from the one he had worked so hard to escape. At 1247 Bleecker Street, James parked his Mercedes, the sleek car an absurd presence in this run-down part of town. The sign for Giovanni's Bakery hung crookedly, its once vibrant letters now faded and chipped. The windows were boarded up, and the smell of stale garbage lingered in the air. It was a place where dreams had long since been abandoned, and James couldn't shake the feeling that he was stepping into a different life altogether, a life that had been hidden from him for years. With bags of groceries in hand, James approached the unmarked door next to the boarded-up bakery. The building's stairwell smelled of mildew, and the walls were lined with peeling paint. Each step creaked under his weight, reminding him that nothing in this place was built to last. As he climbed to the third floor, his shoes grew grimy from the grime that covered the staircase. He reached apartment 3B, the door scarred with scratches and dents, and knocked softly. A voice from behind the door asked, "Are you James?" James knelt down to meet the eyes of a small, serious-looking girl peering through the crack in the door. "Yes, I'm James," he said gently. "I brought food and some medicine for your mom, sweetheart." The girl, Madison, opened the door, revealing a living space that was smaller than he had imagined. The room, barely big enough for the three of them, was a cramped combination of a bedroom, living room, and kitchen. The furniture was sparse, and the room was dimly lit by a single light bulb hanging from the ceiling. The kitchen was tiny, with a hot plate, a mini-fridge, and a sink that seemed to perpetually drip. Despite the conditions, the apartment was surprisingly clean, a small act of dignity in the face of overwhelming hardship. Madison led him to where her mother lay on the couch, still weak but awake, holding the sleeping forms of two other small girls, Zoe and Mia. James's heart clenched at the sight. Rachel, the woman who had once been the bright spot of his late nights at Crawford Industries, now looked like a shadow of the woman he had known. At 37, she was still beautiful, but her face had been marked by exhaustion and struggle. Her long brown hair, once so full and glossy, was now pulled back into a tired ponytail. "Rachel," James said softly as he stepped forward, placing the grocery bags on the table. "It really is you." Rachel looked up at him with surprise, her voice hoarse. "James, I can't believe it's really you." The moment was heavy, filled with years of lost time and unanswered questions. James stood there watching Rachel, and he felt the weight of their shared past pressing down on them both. This wasn't how he had imagined their reunion. He had never thought it would be like this, surrounded by poverty and struggle. Yet, here they were, the past and present, colliding in a way neither of them had expected. "I tried to find you, Rachel," James said, his voice breaking. "After you disappeared, I searched everywhere for you. I didn't know what happened." Rachel looked away, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "I had to leave, James. It wasn't safe for me to stay. It wasn't safe for Madison either." James felt a pang of guilt as Rachel spoke, realizing how little he had known about her life after she left. The pieces of their past, of their brief, stolen moments, had been shattered by forces neither of them could control. But now they had a chance to rebuild, even if that meant starting from the very beginning. "Madison," James said gently, kneeling down to face the young girl, "I'm your father, and I'm here now. I'm not going anywhere." Madison's eyes were wide with a mixture of wonder and caution, as if she couldn't quite believe the words she had just heard. But in that moment, James knew that this was no longer just about business deals and acquisitions. This was about family, his family. The days that followed would be filled with difficult conversations, emotional reunions, and the kind of adjustments that come when a life you thought you knew suddenly changes forever. But for the first time in years, James felt like he was where he truly belonged. Later that night, as the family gathered together in the warmth of James's penthouse, it was clear that their lives had already begun to transform. The apartment, once cold and sterile, was now alive with the sounds of children playing, laughter filling the rooms, and the soft hum of a new kind of family beginning to take shape. James Crawford had built his empire on business acumen and ruthless decision-making. But as he looked at Rachel, Madison, Zoe, and Mia, he realized that the real victory wasn't in a boardroom. It was here, in the messy, imperfect moments of building a life together. For the first time in his life, James didn't need to chase success. He had already found it in the family he never knew he had. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more emotional, dramatic, and unexpected tales. And let us know in the comments where in the world are you watching from. We love hearing from all of you. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and keep watching.